The Treaty of Waitangi's lost meaning. In 1840, the British and Maori chiefs signed the Treaty of Waitangi, which was supposed to decide the fate of New Zealand. The problem? The English and Maori versions didn't quite match. A translation error, basically a typo in meaning, led Maori chiefs to believe they retained full sovereignty, while the English text claimed they ceded it to Britain. For decades, both sides argued over what the treaty really meant. Wars broke out, land was seized, and confusion reigned. It wasn't a small slip like mixing up color and color. It was a mistake that changed the future of a nation. Even today, the treaty's wording remains a point of political debate. All because someone didn't double-check the draft. It's proof that sometimes history doesn't swing on swords or cannons. It swings on bad translation and sloppy editing.
Napoleon's snowstorm surprise. In 1812, Napoleon launched his infamous invasion of Russia. He thought he had everything planned: food, supplies, men. But one small clerical error in logistics, caused by wrong weather notes and sloppy communication, meant his troops didn't pack enough winter gear. The paperwork underestimated Russia's brutal winter by months. Soldiers marched in with summer uniforms and no proper coats. When temperatures dropped to negative 30 degrees Celsius, entire units froze. Napoleon's grand army of 600,000 dwindled to barely 100,000 survivors. His empire never recovered. All because some clerk basically typoed the calendar and failed to account for Russia's icy climate. If Napoleon had double-checked the supply forms instead of rushing ahead, maybe he wouldn't have become history's frostbitten cautionary tale. Sometimes winter wins when paperwork fails. The wrong telegraph in World War I. In 1917, Germany sent a coded telegram to Mexico, promising them land in Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico if they attacked the U.S. The British intercepted it, cracked the code, and passed it to America. But here's the kicker. A translation error in how the Germans phrased it made the message sound even more threatening than intended. When U.S. newspapers published the Zimmerman telegram, Americans were furious. Public opinion flipped overnight, and President Wilson declared war on Germany. A war that might have dragged longer suddenly had America fully involved, thanks to one sloppy piece of wording. The Germans never dreamed their message would go viral in U.S. newspapers, and it all hinged on a badly phrased sentence. Proof that sometimes wars start with words sharper than bullets. The Mars Climate Orbiter Crash. Fast forward to 1999. NASA lost a $125 million spacecraft because of a typo in units. One engineering team used metric, newtons, while another used imperial, pounds. The mismatch wasn't caught until it was too late, and the Mars Climate Orbiter burned up in the Martian atmosphere. Imagine years of calculations, millions of taxpayer dollars, and brilliant engineering ruined by forgetting to double-check whether the numbers were in meters or feet. The whole disaster became a global joke. Mars Climate Orbiter destroyed by a math typo. But it wasn't funny for NASA. That single slip didn't just erase a spacecraft. It embarrassed America's proud space program and taught the world an expensive lesson. Even rocket science can be undone by a tiny typo. Mistranslating the Cold War. In 1956, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev gave a speech where he said something like, "We will live to see you buried." What he meant in Russian was closer to "we will outlast you," or "we'll be around when capitalism ends." But thanks to sloppy translation, Western media thought he literally said, "we will bury you." That phrase terrified Americans and hardened the Cold War. Propaganda exploded, politicians raged, and the mistranslation became a rallying cry against communism. A single slip in translation made tensions worse than they already were. It wasn't tanks, bombs, or spies that deepened the divide. It was a typo in meaning. Words matter, especially when nuclear weapons are on the table. The Great Stock Market Crash of 1962. Computers were just entering Wall Street in the early 1960s, and one small typo nearly tanked the market. A programmer accidentally added an extra zero to a set of trades, which triggered a domino effect. Suddenly, billions of dollars in shares looked like they were being dumped at lightning speed. Panic spread, investors sold in a frenzy, and the market nosedived. By the time officials realized it was just a coding error, huge amounts of value had vanished. A single fat finger keystroke cost fortunes and wrecked careers. Traders called it the flash crash. Before flash crashes were even a thing. If you ever feel bad about sending a text with a typo, just remember, at least your typo didn't wipe billions from the economy. A Bible that encouraged sin. In 1631, a London printer produced a new edition of the Bible. Everything looked fine until readers noticed something horrifying in the 10 Commandments. Instead of "Thou shalt not commit adultery," the printers left out one word. The text read, "Thou shalt commit adultery." The church was not amused. Copies were quickly recalled, and the printers were fined heavily. But the damage was done. The book became known as the Wicked Bible. Imagine hundreds of people opening their Holy Scripture and seeing what looked like divine permission for cheating. A single missing "not" turned God's law upside down. Centuries later, that typo is still remembered as the costliest printing mistake in history. Proof that spell check won't save your soul. A war over a map typo. Borders are serious business, but even cartographers make mistakes. In the 19th century, Britain and the US nearly went to war over Maine's border with Canada because of a badly drawn map. A misprinted line shifted the boundary, making both sides think the land was theirs. The Aroostook War, also called the Pork and Beans War, broke out, not with bloody battles, but with militias yelling and chasing each other around forests. Thankfully, no major fight happened, but the near miss showed how fragile peace could be. A bad line on a map, a simple "oops," almost sparked a war between two nations. Borders aren't just lines, they're life and death sentences, and even one typo can redraw the world. The typo that nuked Nagasaki. During World War II, after Hiroshima was bombed, the U.S. military prepared to drop the second atomic bomb. The target was supposed to be Kokura, but heavy clouds covered Kokura that day, and the crew switched to their secondary target, Nagasaki. Here's the twist. Some historians argue a clerical typo and rushed orders made Kokura and Nagasaki get swapped in the official paperwork. One tiny mix-up in military notes helped decide which city lived and which city burned. Tens of thousands of lives, and the course of history, changed because someone didn't proofread. It's haunting to think the deadliest weapon in history may have been guided by a clerical error.